Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather. Today I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin. I'd like to talk about the weather health risk for November 1st, 2025. We do keep additional graphics available at TPATW.com. Taking a quick look at the surface map for the 1st, we have an active frontal system pushing inland in the Pacific Northwest. We do have another dividing line up through and down the high plains, and that serves mainly as a differential between the warm temperatures to the west and the cooler temperatures here to the east, where high pressure really dominates most of the country. There is a bit of unsettled weather here in the Tennessee and Ohio Valley, but that's mainly the confluence of weather flow around the high and the retreating low as it's trying to move away from New England. Looking at our vitality index, which is a composite of all of the weather elements that can impact human health, you'll see we have three large areas of interest here in the Pacific Northwest, stretching from Washington across Montana, a very strong and intense area of interest here in Texas, and then of course we have the Great Lakes up through New England. Looking at pressure change, and pressure change is the one element that most people realize they have a sensitivity to, and you can see we have falling pressure starting here in western Washington state, cutting across Idaho and Montana, and making its way into the westernmost portions of North and South Dakota. But it is rising pressure stretching all the way from West Texas across Oklahoma, Kansas, and up into the Great Lakes states, and getting really significant here in the east, especially from Pennsylvania up through Maine. And notice it does reach all the way down into Virginia here in the south. Looking at temperature change, and temperature change can be of interest to those suffering from migraine, as for every 10-degree increase in temperatures, there is an increasing risk of migraine, and we have those rising temperatures stretching from western Washington across northern Idaho into much of Montana down into Wyoming. Dew point temperature change can also be of interest, especially for those with asthma and arthritis, and you'll see that we have rising dew point temperatures here in the Pacific Northwest, significantly rising dew point temperatures in Texas, and we have a touch of rising dew point temperatures here in the Florida Peninsula. But as we look to vapor pressure, we can see the level of intensity a lot better, and that still shows that we're having that increase in vapor pressure in the Pacific Northwest, but a really intense increase in vapor pressure here in South Texas. And notice we can see that the increase in vapor pressure across Florida is more significant than is shown in the dew point temperature change map. And finally, we will look at POI, or our estimate of the change in the availability of oxygen in the atmosphere, and we'll see we have a risk of migraine right along the coastal areas of Washington and Oregon. But as we move inland, we'll have a risk of arthritis and asthma across eastern Washington and Oregon, across Idaho, almost all of Montana, where it becomes quite significant, and then stretching into the westernmost portions of North and South Dakota, already touching down into the panhandle of Nebraska. As we move to the east, we pick up that risk of migraine again, and this will start in eastern New Mexico and portions of Texas, stretching across Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, up into Wisconsin, across the Great Lakes, and getting really intense as we move into Pennsylvania and New England. Note that we have a risk of asthma and arthritis here again in South Texas, where we've been talking about that instability and vapor pressure increases, and it stretches along the Gulf all the way to Florida, and picking up a significant risk of asthma and arthritis across the peninsula of Florida. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather. Your comments are appreciated. And if you hurt, please tell us where you're looking.